Texas football breaks their losing streak, Texas basketball has released their conference schedule, and the MLB has crowned a champion. All of this and more coming up on College Crossfire.
Yeah, let's do this.
And their men's basketball team need to stop social distancing themselves from fans.
But now it has been overdone to death. Playing, don't stop believing.
Bye-bye, Bucks. Bye-bye, Raptors.
All right, let's get to it. Welcome into College Crossfire and happy early Halloween. I'm your host, Jaxie Pidgeon, and it looks like tonight's show is going to be a spooky one. Let's start by introducing tonight's panel. On first base, we have, looks like head coach Tom Herman, but Jake Herman himself. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm very excited to go 1-0 during my first appearance of the semester.
Happy to have you. And another coach on second base, John Kelley, as Andy Reid. How are you, John?
I'm good, Jaxie. I won last week. I won the Super Bowl. Looking to win again.
All righty. And on third base, for the first time ever on College Crossfire, we have Celeste Ramirez. Looks like she is the GOAT or greatest of all time. We'll have to see what she has to bring today. How are you, Celeste?
I am good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Happy to have you. All righty. Before we get started, we're going to award some of the panelists some extra points. So Celeste, you're going to start off with an extra point because you have the best costume. Very crafty and creative. I saw her making it last night. Love it. Greatest of all time. I wonder who you're saying is the GOAT, but we'll find out later. And John, you're going to get a point because of your homemade hype video that was shared on our social media accounts earlier today, 2 weeks in a row. Love to see it. All right, let's get to it. This past Saturday, Texas football took on the Baylor Bears at home. This was Texas's 5th game of the season, while it was only the 3rd game for Baylor as they had to halt football activities due to COVID-19. In what was a scoreless first quarter for the Longhorns, their defense held the Bears to only 3. Between the second and third quarter, Texas's offense started to work their magic, putting up 27 points between the second and third quarters and holding Baylor to that same 3 points. The fourth is where Texas looked to slip up a little, allowing Baylor to add 13 points to the board. However, they were unable to score in the final 7 minutes, giving Texas the 27-16 win. Was there enough change in this Texas team versus Baylor to appease the fans? Jake, start us off.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say not yet. There were certainly improvements for the Texas football team in this game. The discipline was better. There were fewer penalties. There was stronger tackling. The line of scrimmage looked a lot better. But this has to come with a mention that it was against a Baylor team that's not really expected to accomplish much this season. They lost to West Virginia. The only team that Baylor is going to be favored to beat the rest of the season is Texas Tech. And that happens to be the only other Big 12 team that Texas has beaten. So in my opinion, the Longhorns fans' expectations are simply not going to be met until Texas can put together this kind of performance against the best teams in the conference. And they have a chance to do that on Saturday.
All right. Jake doesn't think they lived up to the fans' expectations. John, what do you think?
I'm agree with Jake. I don't think they lived up to expectations at all. They certainly have done better than their past 2 matchups against TCU and Oklahoma. But special teams has gotten better, penalties a lot less. One thing I would like to see moving forward is no interceptions or turnovers. Sam has thrown 5 interceptions so far, and there's been 5 games this season, including that terrible game loser against Oklahoma. And I think they just need to get things better a little more. This Baylor team wasn't that good. This game shouldn't have been close, and really they shouldn't have scored so much in the fourth quarter.
Right, that late comeback for Baylor got a little bit scary at the end there for Texas. Celeste, what do you think?
I'm going to have to agree as well. There's no way of really appeasing fans at this point in the season after losing 2 games. And they really would have had to go lights out against maybe a Clemson team to put 7-16 over Baylor. The Baylor team's been battling COVID for about the past 3 or so weeks. Yes, improvements were made, but was there enough change to appease fans? I'd say no.
Right. We did see some improvement this week with this Longhorns team. However, it wasn't life-altering enough to make these fans be like, wow, we've got it. We're back again. So all of you guys are going to start out with 3 points on that one. We'll see what they do next week or this week. All right, next up. While many can be quick to criticize what is going wrong for this 2020 Texas football team, people should still be able to give credit where it is due. Texas was given a bye week between their loss to Oklahoma and their match against Baylor to sharpen their weaknesses and figure out how to pull together to get a win. They started their season with back-to-back wins, only to follow those with back-to-back losses. Luckily, they were able to put an end to their losing streak with Saturday's victory over Baylor. So, whether it be offensive, defensive, special teams, coaching, you name it, what is the biggest thing going right for this Texas team? John?
At this very moment, the defense. This defense, until the fourth quarter, held the Baylor Bears only to 3 points and had an impressive goal line stand in the first quarter, rather, to hold them to that field goal. And we've seen it time again after the Oklahoma game. They kept up with Oklahoma for most of the game, obviously lacking a bit in the overtime, but they really showed their stuff against Baylor this game.
Sure, that defensive, stride holding them to 3 definitely was a game changer for the Longhorns this game. Celeste, what do you think?
The defensive line has been super crucial for Texas this entire season. They consistently get pass rushes and block passes. I think being a veteran unit has really helped them, and switching Joseph Asai to the jack position is super helpful. They're definitely the strongest and most consistent unit this Texas team has to offer.
Right. Osai being moved is definitely a big help for those Horns. And, they've been lacking in that end of game section. But, when they come together at the prime moments to pull this win over Baylor especially was good too. Jake, what do you think?
For the most part, I agree with Celeste. I think that the front seven, especially that linebacking core, is really much improved from last season. Guys like Jawan Mitchell, Joseph Osai, and Demarvion Overshawn have really become the heart and soul of the defense. And so for them to be able to wreak havoc for opposing quarterbacks is certainly going in the right direction for Texas. And then the other thing I would say is just being balanced on offense. They've been able to both control the tempo with the run and make some explosive plays with the pass. It's really been a somewhat dynamic offense. They just haven't had it going in full gear all the time.
Sure. And I like how you mentioned the offensive side too, because, Sam hasn't been playing awful. He really hasn't. And, it's just a matter of coming together. So, both sides have seen improvement, and it just really everyone needs to be able to come together in order for them to take this win against OSU and moving forward. So, Jake, you're going to get 3, Celeste 2, John 1. Next up, this Saturday, the Longhorns will head to Stillwater, Oklahoma for their Halloween afternoon matchup against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. While Texas is 3-2 on the season, Oklahoma State is an undefeated 4-0. The Cowboys are having a solid year so far and have only allowed 48 points in their first 4 games and give up just 303 yards defensively. This will be the Longhorns' final opportunity to give themselves a shot at the conference title. With a win in Stillwater, the Horns could be back in Big 12 contention. Head coach Tom Herman and the Texas team are taking on this road game with a positive can-do attitude. But do you think Texas has what it takes to hang with Oklahoma State? Celeste?
Simply put, no. The 2-2 Texas team is nowhere near cool enough to hang with the Oklahoma State Cowboys, who are undefeated. Their development's been beautiful. Their defense is so strong, and combining those elements with the fact that they're playing in Stillwater, there's no chance.
All right, Celeste says no chance. Jake, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to take off the headset for this one because this is going to be a roller coaster ride of a game for the Texas Longhorns. I think it's shaping up to be one of those games that can change the trajectory of the seasons for both teams. Now, the way I see it, it's going to come down to maybe 1 or 2 little plays. Last year, Texas really dominated on third down. Sam Ehlinger and Devin Duvernay picked Oklahoma State apart. This year, it's an area where the Cowboys have really improved. And with Devin Duvernay graduated, the Oklahoma State defense improved. I think it's going to come down to a few little plays, and I think Oklahoma State's going to edge them out. But I think Texas can absolutely hang with them.
Jake, yeah, that's a fair point. Texas can hang in there. And like you said, they've lost some star players, which definitely doesn't help their cause. But that happens over time as well. So every team's kind of feeling that. But Duvernay is definitely a big loss for the Horns. John, what do you think? Oh, no, we lost you, John.
I think I got him in my headset.
Hello?
There you go.
There we go.
You're in.
There's absolutely no chance this Texas team is going to win. This Oklahoma State team is too dominant, And in my mind, they're going to make it all the way to the college football playoffs for the Big 12.
You're saying that for Oklahoma State, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. They're definitely a solid team this year. But I think Jake has got a point here that the Longhorns, they're due to rise to an occasion. What do they have to lose? I think that they can definitely hang with this Oklahoma State team, right? This is very early still in the season. And all I'm saying is Texas has nothing to lose. Like, they literally can go out there and kill it, do nothing, and still hang in there. So, it's going to be close, like Jake said, but it's definitely not going to be a blowover. So, Jake, you're going to get 3, Celeste 2, and John 1. And when we come back, the panel discusses Texas basketball in the MLB World Series champions. You won't want to miss it.
Men's basketball looks for a key win against Iowa State. Women's basketball is tested against the number 2 team in the nation.
The Longhorns had a dominant pitching performance in the latter half of the game, led by Pete Hansen.
I get to say some of the most exciting words in football. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. And picking for
Texas started the third with the lead and continued to gain momentum on defense.
Hello and welcome into the first social distancing college press box ever.
You're watching a live sports presentation of Texas Student Television.
It's a lovely evening in Austin. Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies.
This is a rivalry game, high intensity, high scoring.
Puck drop, we're off.
Both of these teams are very fast.
Big collision on the wall there. Now a little advantage for Texas. Shot in the middle.
Welcome back to College Crossfire. Before we get started, let's take a look at the scoreboard. Leading the show, we have Jake with 9 points. In second place, we have Celeste with 8 points. And in third place, we have John with 6 points. All right, let's jump right back in. This past Monday, the Big 12 Conference released its men's basketball league schedule for the 2020-21 season. The team begins their season against opponents like Kentucky, Davidson, and UTRGV. All conference teams will play twice in an 18-game double round-robin format. Whether or not fans will be allowed in is still in question. For the Texas men's basketball team, they will open up their season on the road to Waco on December the 13th to take on the Baylor Bears, and also finish on the road with a road game against the Texas Tech Red Raiders on February the 27th. What are your thoughts on the Texas men's basketball schedule for this season? Jake, start us off.
Yeah, Jaxie, I think the biggest thing to consider when you're examining the Texas men's basketball schedule is the fact that home court advantage doesn't mean what it would have had these stadiums been in full capacity. And I know Texas over the past few years, unfortunately, hasn't had the best home court advantage in basketball. I know they're hoping to get one soon with the Moody Center under construction and the program with some exciting new talent such as Greg Brown. But that's something to keep in mind, because during a normal season, playing at Kentucky or playing at Kansas doesn't mean what it's going to in 2020. I think it gives this Longhorns team a real opportunity to outperform their expectations.
That's an interesting point you make, that, location isn't as much a factor anymore, just solely based on the fact that there may or may not be fans. So that's a solid point. John, what do you think?
I agree with Jake. If anything, the fact that there's limited attendance will make it more at home for this Texas Longhorn team, since they're so used to having limited fan attendance. I think this will be a strong year for Texas. They had a late season shot last year. Unfortunately, they didn't make it. And of course, coronavirus canceled everything else. But I think it'll be a strong year for the Longhorns.
All right. John sees a strong year for the Horns. And Celeste, what do you think?
My thoughts are that this team should at the very least make the NCAA tournament, considering that they have 12 players returning and they have the 5-star recruit that Jake mentioned with Greg Brown, and they're adding him to the mix. It's a tough schedule for sure, but at the very least, they should make the NCAA tournament this year.
Sure. And Celeste, you're going to get the points on this one. Like you said, Greg Brown coming in is going to be a great addition. But, schedule, not easy, but also not the worst we've ever seen for this Texas team. So, Celeste, you will get the points on that one. All right. According to Kay Adams of Good Morning Football, DK Metcalf is currently the best in the NFL. The second-year receiver rocked the sports world with this incredible tackle after what was supposed to be a pick six. For the Seattle Seahawks, Metcalf has averaged over 15.5 yards a catch in each of the 5 games he's played in this year, and in 6 of his last 7 games overall. The second-round draft pick first put himself on the map in 2019 when he had a 7-catch, 160-yard performance against the Eagles. Metcalf is a shining star offensively for the Seahawks, but he is also a standout receiver in the NFL. In just 21 NFL games played, Metcalf is hanging in there with the best of the best in his position in terms of records and numbers. So, do you think DK Metcalf is the next star wide receiver? John, start us off.
Absolutely. I think the speed that he showed last week proves that he has the ability to become the next star receiver, because it's such an asset for a team to have such speed on their team, and especially with a great quarterback like Russell Wilson, it'll be an unstoppable duo.
Sure, it's definitely a solid quarterback, and I know the fast thing is definitely helpful too. I saw that about him and Tyreek Hill getting in the race. That would have been a funny matchup too. So great points. Celeste, what do you think?
He is definitely the next star. He's also literally insane. His athleticism is just unmatched. This 22-year-old currently leads the NFL in yards per reception with 22.5 yards, and it's 2 whole yards more than any other wide receiver in the league. He's just unmatched. The ceiling on this guy is crazy.
Right. In terms of athletic ability, that is an insane build he's got going on for him. And great all-around star as well for this team. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys said. First, John mentioning the importance of Russell Wilson. I know he's been really important to the psychology of DK Metcalf. It also helps your confidence as a receiver when you have a quarterback dropping it in perfectly almost each and every time. I think DK is on his way to becoming a really elite wide receiver in this league. But since it's Halloween, I have to mention he does have one demon, and that's Patrick Peterson of the Arizona Cardinals. In the last 3 meetings, he's really been held in check by Peterson, and that's going to be the next step for DK Metcalf, figuring out how to win a matchup against an elite corner like Peterson over the course of a game.
Sure. Definitely going to be some, trouble heading his way. It's not going to be an easy coast as shining star right away. But he is doing pretty well as a young guy in the NFL so far. John, you're going to get the points on this one because like you mentioned, it's not only him, but he's also blessed to have that quarterback throwing to him. And then, Tyler Lockett slept on too. He's got it all going on for him. I think he has a great future ahead of him. So, John, you will get the points on this one. Next up, as of last night, the MLB has finally crowned a World Series champion. In the 116th edition of the World Series, the Los Angeles Dodgers have claimed their first World Series title since 1988. This was the Dodgers' 7th title in franchise history and 6th since they moved to Los Angeles ahead of the 1958 season. Heading into Game 6, the Dodgers were leading the series 3-2. In Game 6, the Rays put themselves on the board first, leading 1-0 until the bottom of the 6th when the Dodgers added 2 runs and finally another run in the 8th. The Rays could not get the job done to move to a Game 7, giving the title to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Is this the dawn of the Dodgers era? Celeste?
I would say 100% yes, and I know that's a risky take. But since Magic Johnson has become owner, I would argue that the Dodgers have been on an upward trajectory, making the World Series 2018. You guys know what happened with that. The Dodgers have a super solid core right now, and then a 12-year contract with Mookie Betts. It's just crazy what this team can do.
Sure, lots of potential looking forward for this Dodgers team. Jake, what do you think?
Absolutely. This is the dawn of the Dodgers era, and it's really because they have the best roster in the league, but it's young enough and the Dodgers are rich enough to be able to keep it together for a long time, unlike, say, my Washington Nationals, who had to shuffle things around quite a bit after their win. I think now that this Dodger group has had a taste for glory, they'll be back at it. I think 1 or 2 more World Series champions. This core is actually a conservative estimate. I think they're going to dominate.
Sure. And like you mentioned, young, and they have the money to do it. So definitely we'll see what the future has to hold for this Dodgers team. John, what do you think?
I would think dawn is a good word to use for this Dodger team, or for this era of the Dodgers dominance. I think mid-morning. We have to remember that this Dodgers team has been the National League champions for 3 of the past 4 years. and almost or could have won a World Series maybe if the Houston Astros didn't cheat a couple years back. So this team has definitely been on an upward trajectory. The era began, the dawn of it was with their first National League championship 4 years ago. I mean, that's nothing to spit at. As a Rangers fan, I'd even take an AL West championship, let alone an AL championship. So this Dodgers team being champions for so long, I think we've definitely already entered the Dodgers era.
I like the connection that you drew there, John, but I do think that this is the start of something new for the Dodgers. So Jake, you're going to get the points on this one. Like you said, they're going to be able to have these players for a while because they're young, like you mentioned before, and they have the money to do it. I mean, they have the biggest budget, I think, well, one of the biggest, if not the biggest. And they will be able to hold those players if they would like to, hopefully, for the next few years or maybe a while. So this is the start of something new for the Dodgers. Jake, you're getting the points. And coming up next, it's Rapid Fire here on College Crossfire. You won't want to miss it.
Good pocket protection. Look at that. It's a Jeep. Gotta keep studying Astros film.
Daniel, what are you doing here so early?
I slept great.
Welcome back to College Crossfire. It's time for Rapid Fire. In this round, points are worth double, and that means it's anybody's game. Before we jump back in, let's take a look at the scoreboard. In first place, we have Jake with 10 points, and then a close second, we have Celeste with 9 points, and then third, we have John with 7 points. Let's get to it. This past Tuesday, ESPN announced that College Game Day will take place at Augusta National Golf Club. The show, which began in 1993, has since broadcasted from college campuses all over the U.S. With the 84th edition of the Masters being postponed from its usual April date, this is the first time that the tournament overlaps with the college football season. The College Game Day crew will be set up overlooking 9 Green on the par 3 course and will be live from their usual 9 to noon timeframe ahead of the round 3 coverage. So, if you could pick the location of the set of College Game Day, what non-football place would you choose? Anybody can jump in.
I think absolutely, especially since it's this Saturday. College Game Day should have gone international and go to Taiwan and coincide with the Taiwan series of baseball, their championship.
Coinciding with Taiwan series of baseball championship and maybe even visit our very own Daniel Shee. Who knows? Who else?
I'm going to say San Antonio because San Antonio knows how to party.
Who doesn't love a party? Jake, what do you think?
You know, I think kids have been cooped up for a while, looking for something to look forward to, ready to head out on Halloween for trick-or-treating. I'm just going to say your neighborhood. Break down the ins and outs of trick-or-treating and how it's going to work. Give the coverage to the lesser-known sports, College Game Day, to your neighborhood on Halloween night.
You know, Jake, you're going to get the points on this one. I do like the creativity there. You know, kids are going to be struggling with trick-or-treating this year. There are some safe alternatives I read about, but I mean, who wouldn't love a nice College Game Day crew in their neighborhood? So Jake, you're going to get the points on that one. Next up, for the past 21 years, the home of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche will no longer be called Pepsi Center. Starting tomorrow, it will be named Ball Arena. That's right. The basketball team is playing at the Ball Arena. This name came from a multi-year global partnership between Ball Corporation and Kroenke Sports and Entertainment. The sponsors plan to include sustainable and environmentally friendly elements that will be established at the arena, like in-venue aluminum recycling. Their vision is to advance sustainability in sports and entertainment. Even with the new naming rights and partnership, Pepsi will still be the official beverage sponsor of the arena. So, if you had a stadium and you could have any sponsor, who would it be?
I'm gonna stick with the Halloween atmosphere, but also go for a little double entendre here. How about Party City? Who doesn't want their stadium to be known as Party City? You can get all sorts of costumes and festive atmospheres going on around your stadium. Plus, you get that kind of party atmosphere that you always want out of a fan base. Party City Stadium has a nice ring to it.
Jake, costumes galore in the stadium, I guess. Who else?
I'll go.
You got it.
I'm going to say Degree deodorant because there's a bunch of stinky people in stadiums, and that'll really keep things under control.
Yes, keeping fans under control, but scent-wise. John, what do you think?
I think stadiums should have no sponsor. Go back to the days of just, naming it after people or places, or just giving it more of a hometown feel,
Lame. Celeste, you're going to get the points on this one. I know there are stinky people in this world, and someone needs to put them in their place. So I like where you're going with that. And we will now head into the final question of the night. This past Monday, the Washington football team defeated the Dallas Cowboys 25-3. That was in Maryland at FedEx Stadium, and the win was definitely an exciting one for the team as it was their first win of the season. But they also received the incredible news that coach Ron Rivera completed his last cancer treatment on the same day. Rivera announced that he was diagnosed in August, and now 7 weeks of treatment later, he completed his final treatment and got to ring the bell to ring in hope before leaving. With all this positive news for the Washington football team, how should the team commemorate Ron Rivera being cancer-free? Anyone can jump in.
Get rid of sponsorship on the stadium and name the stadium after him. I stand by it.
All right. John wants to give the naming rights, take away sponsorships, but give the naming rights to the stadium to Ron Rivera. Who else?
I'll say, because I'm pretty familiar with the Washington football team growing up in that area. And I know Ron Rivera is really trying to change the culture over there. He's a great role model and example for that with his courage through his treatment. I would say maybe you start a new locker room tradition. It doesn't have to be a, something huge. Just maybe a player or a staff member, somebody that stood out, somebody that went above and beyond for the organization gets to maybe ring that bell after each game or maybe after a victory. And then you post it on social media, you get some good attention, and it's a great moment for the team and the maybe the person involved to bond together, trying to make that new culture.
All right, creating a new culture with Ron Rivera being kind of the sponsor of that. Celeste, what do you think?
I think that they should name a beer after him, so that way after every game they can do a cheers to Ron Rivera.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's more my speed. Celeste, you are getting the points and tonight's win on her first debut. Yay, Celeste! That being said, it's time for FaceTime. Celeste, take it away.
Oh my God. What do I have to do?
Give someone a shout out. Say what you're thankful for today. It's all you, girl. You can do whatever you want.
Shout out to my dogs, Kobe, Bandit, Timmy, who are watching from home. I like to call them a big three. My parents, hopefully, that stayed tuned in for this long. And all of my fans. Love you guys.
Yes, and thank you for being on and for your first time tonight, and also with first female debut on the panel, on my panel. So thank you for doing that, and congrats on the win. And thank you guys for tuning into tonight's episode of College Crossfire. Before we go, I would like to remind you that early voting in Texas goes from now until this Friday, October the 30th. And Election Day is Tuesday, November the 3rd. Don't forget to follow us on social media at TSTV Sports on Twitter and Instagram. Lastly, be sure to wake up with the Want to Know Sports Show Friday mornings at 10 a.m. From all the panelists in our virtual studio and our virtual master control, I'm Jaxie Pidgeon. Have a spooky evening.